Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm David Evans. I chair the IOSH Hazardous Industries Group, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you today to the final of our webinars for 2020. It's been a different year for everybody, and this year was the first time we launched into this new technology. And we'd like to thank all of you for joining us. We've averaged well over 200 attendees at the events, and so we hope you're getting a lot of value out of them. Today we've got Nigel Blumire driving the slides and the process and sharing a lot of information with us on lithium-ion batteries. Before I hand over to him, I'd just like to go through a few minor admin and house things. Thanks all, as I said, for joining us. We're going to be putting programs together for next year, and we're going to continue this theme of different webinars. If any of you want to share ideas for subjects with us, any papers that you're aware of or good speakers you'd like to nominate, then please do drop us a line either directly through the IOSH contacts, or even why not connect with us through the LinkedIn site that's grown rapidly this year. I think we're up to about 1,400 members, many of whom are active. We post regularly there, and it's probably the fastest way of getting information around our network, so please do join with that. Like all other years, 2020 seen its range of very nasty incidents and problems. Probably the largest that everybody pictures is the Beirut explosion and the tragedy that happened there. In the UK, only a week or so ago, we had an explosion at the Avonmouth water treatment works, and I'm sure plenty of you know of other incidents, so please do share them with us. As we go through the session today, Nigel's got a couple of questions, a little surveys, questions he's going to raise during the session. So please do fill in your answers to these interactively as we go through. And again, there's going to be the chat and question area. Please fill those in. And I'll come back and pose the most awkward questions I can to Nigel at the end. Nigel, over to you and the slides, please.
Welcome, everyone. Just to sort of thank you very much for going and introducing me there, David. Appreciate the invitation from him and his enthusiasm for this topic. So my presentation today is based on a similar talk I provide to the fire and rescue services, who are also very interested in the current state of lithium-ion battery deployment and the possible future. So we're all dealing with hazards arising from using these batteries, and overall, the failure rate is incredibly low, with estimates ranging from 1 in 10 million cells to 1 in 40 million cells. But with so many being used, it can pose a real risk. So the greatest risk appears from using the batteries incorrectly and disposing of it inappropriately, as we've seen from media reports posted on our group LinkedIn account. In this talk, I will describe first where batteries came from, then look at the present day and the challenges we now face, with my final roundup of future trends. So what I wanted to go and start off with first off is who I actually am. So let me introduce myself properly. I was very fortunate enough to have the chance to conduct my PhD at the University of Southampton, followed by 10 years in the pharmaceutical sector for a contract research organization. We were able to get a drug candidate to phase 1 clinical trials, which was a bit of a success with our company. And then I had a brief stint as a taxi driver of an evening around Oxfordshire, which showed me a completely different side of life, and found out about the National Chemical Emergency Centre and joined them as an emergency responder, first off answering calls for chemical advice around the globe 24/7, and then moved into being the emergency response training product manager, and have been providing support to private and public sector clients for the last few years. I've also had the opportunity to do a lot of voluntary work as well for several organizations, including IOSH. And so far, I've had a very, very interesting career. It's not a standard chemist type career at all. So my main activity now is providing hazardous materials training to the emergency services, and that nicely leads me into introducing my company, the National Chemical Emergency Centre. And sorry about my little dog. He likes to go and provide his input at times. So, National Chemical Emergency Centre. Some of you attending may have already heard of us or even use us for support, but the centre actually provides chemical advice on behalf of over 600 chemical companies. But we also provide support to the UK emergency services on behalf of the Chemical Industries Association in the UK and the Department for Transport through our service called ChemSafe. This service has been running since 1973 after several incidents in the late 60s and early 70s. And really the straw that broke the camel's back was when a good Samaritan tried to assist a driver that was trapped after a road traffic incident. She was a nurse, so she knew exactly what she was doing, but walked through a clear, colourless liquid that was leaking from the tanker. Some of you may have already read that it was fuming sulfuric acid, and unfortunately, she lost her life 3 days later. At that time, there was no placarding or chemical advice actually available, so this has been remedied from this tragic point in history. At the National Chemical Emergency Centre, we receive around 8,000 calls a year requesting assistance. And I have some stories that I use during my training, which just have to be heard to be believed. So I'm not going to be sharing those today, but if you ever want to get in contact and find them out, you're more than welcome. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to have my colleague helping to launch a poll with you guys. So what we are actually looking at is batteries, and when do you think that they were first became available? You know, we've all gone from an early age needed those batteries in our toys. We always hoped that our parents had remembered them to add them to our Christmas presents. And I know my parents failed a few times. So when do you think the first battery was developed? Was it 250 BC, 1836, 1800, or AD 224? So I'll just give you a few moments just to go and put your answers in there. And we'll see what people actually come up with. I'm suspecting some of you will go and know exactly when that date was. So, David, when do you think it was?
If I remember my physics lecture, wasn't it a Mr. Volt? Didn't he have something to do with batteries?
Not far off. Not far off at all.
I think, was he Italian? He was certainly European.
Yes. So the principles of electrochemistry was first started by Alessandro Volta, who developed the voltaic pile.
That's him.
And that created enough electricity to keep the lights on in Napoleon's palace. But the first practical battery was actually 1836.
Right.
So there we go. 47 of you were smack bang on the money. So really, really well done. Those who have gone with 250 BC, that's the Baghdad battery. And really, it didn't have enough electrical energy in there because it was just based on acetic acid. So it wasn't quite a battery. But yes, Volta was the father of electrochemistry. And then AD 24 was just a number that I came up with off the top of my head. So well done to those who went and got the 1836. So really the important part is the reason why I put that up. It's all about what the battery is actually doing. So we need the right chemicals to take chemical energy and turn it into electrical energy. And that is really what a battery, or more strictly an electrochemical cell, actually does. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that from a scientific perspective, but I just want to go and keep this a light discussion. So why do I make a distinction between electrochemical cells and batteries, and how it sort of ties into all the lithium-ion information I'm going to be doing? So the image shows an electrochemical cell, and basically you combine these in an electric circuit provide you with a battery. So a battery is a combination of cells, and an electrochemical cell is a single unit that converts the chemical energy into electrical energy. So in the solutions in the Danielle cell, you go and have zinc sulfate and copper sulfate, and then you go and have a copper electrode and a zinc electrode, and you wire them up, and then it goes and provides electricity to light a light bulb. Okay. So we also can go and split our batteries into rechargeable or non-rechargeable, and lithium ion falls into the rechargeable or secondary category. And lithium metal that you can also get and is normally used in your car keys, or it's normally the little button batteries. They sit in the primary category since it suffers from forming what we call metal dendrimers, which grow as you're going and recharging it. And over about 10 cycles or so, those metal dendrimers will just cause an electrical short in there. So that's why we can't really use lithium metal as a rechargeable battery. Therefore, lithium ion is much more useful with our current technology needs, and there isn't actually any lithium metal within a lithium ion, which means that you can go and use other fire extinguishers to put it out, such as CO2, powder, foam, these other ones that do have water involved in there. Yeah, because lithium metal is a very reactive metal and it will react with water. We also seen that in a lot of cases, the fire services are using water to go and put out electric vehicle fires. And this is why they can do it, because it's lithium ion, no lithium metal actually within the battery. Okay. What I do want to highlight and just pause on for a moment is the figures in context of batteries. I suspect all of you have smartphones, laptops, lots of other portable devices, as well as maybe an electric vehicle of some sort. I had a quick check around my flat and found that I had 2 phones, 1 tablet, a laptop, my landline, and a remote, all using lithium-ion battery technology in my home. That means that there's probably between 2 and 3 electrochemical cells in each of those batteries. And so I have around about 14 plus cells I can account for without ransacking my home for more. And I'm sure there's others kicking around if I sort of looked in all of my wardrobes and drawers. Yeah. Why is this important? Well, I did say at the start that the failure rate is really low. But when you start looking at how many cells are out there, we start to go and rise up very, very quickly. One of the most popular electric vehicles contains 7,000 cells running at over 500 volts. Okay, so you can see how the number of electric vehicles on our roads is just going to increase that number of cells very rapidly. The good thing is that the manufacturer states that it is 11 times more likely for a petrol vehicle to catch on fire than one of their electric vehicles, which is excellent information, but we do need more cooling power for an electric vehicle than a petrol one, since the battery is encased in a steel chassis, which is currently difficult to access. However, there is a lot of work going on in this area to provide passive cooling to the batteries to promote battery life and additional safety features to limit any failures within the battery packs. And I'm sure you may have seen on your smartphones, especially if you have an Apple iPhone, that they're starting to go and give you advice on looking after your battery and how to go and get the most out of it. These safety features are required in commercial lithium-ion batteries to keep this failure rate low. But when these are removed, which occurred with some hoverboards that were sold within the UK, or the battery becomes damaged, the likelihood of failure increases. We saw with the hoverboards that the chargers were allowing charge to flow to the battery even when the state of charge had reached 100%, which resulted in a thermal runaway, burning down a number of owners' kitchens. And the problem with those hoverboards was that they had some of those safety features taken out, meaning that they were cheaper to produce. So you can go and get quite significant issues if those are removed. So there's a lot of types of batteries out there. You've got the lead acid batteries that powered our petrol vehicles for decades, and you also have nickel metal hydride, which is used in a lot of plug-in electric vehicle hybrids. But our main focus is the lithium metal that's in bold alongside the lithium-ion batteries. The technologies at the bottom that are in italics are ones that are currently being researched or commercialized, and sodium ion with its additional safety features, because it doesn't undergo thermal runaway, could well replace lithium ion in the future, especially for automotive applications. Why do this when lithium is such a good material with some of the best energy and power densities possible in batteries? Well, we've all seen the videos of laptops and other items actually catching on fire. And so this is really an ongoing issue and challenge with more and more of them coming onto the market. We just need to improve this or replace it. Later on in the talk, I will go through what a thermal runaway actually is. And we've seen some very serious incidents resulting in calls to the emergency services. The transport and waste sector are seeing challenges resulting from this. We now have electric buses and other commercial vehicles hitting the road. In my local area, we've seen these new forms of transport catching on fire, and this is a real issue for our future with the UK government target of no new petrol or diesel vehicles by 2030. Norway has already forged ahead with these changes, with roughly 10% of registered passenger vehicles being all electric, and they also have another 8% composed of hybrids and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So this is a real help in learning lessons for the rest of the globe. And we've seen a lot of what they've been dealing with in their country, from hydrogen fuels and other things like that. It's really going to help us starting to understand these things. So I've got another poll for you all to join in on, and just be asking for that to be started. So thinking about this, thinking about how lithium-ion batteries can go and actually catch on fire, how many of you charge your smartphones by your bed overnight? And I'd just like to sort of see a fraction, how many actually go and do it. I always thought nothing of it and went and used it to actually monitor my sleep patterns and other things like that. I used my tablets while next to my bed, then plugged it in. So didn't think anything of it. And I'm just wondering how many of you have gotten sort of thoughts about this previously. So we'll just go and share the results. It's a more even split than I thought. I'm impressed by the health and safety of everyone. So I thought this was a really interesting question, and I've even had apps telling me to go and put my smartphone underneath my pillow. And then I went and started talking to a lot of fire officers, and one Dutch fire officer actually showed me a phone that he'd rigged up failing next to a sofa. And the amount of heat energy that is produced from that phone went and transferred into the sofa, and it caught on fire very, very easily. So obviously the phone was rigged to fail. So they had gone and chosen an exact, it's the likelihood of it actually happening is quite low, but it's like a, smoking in bed. If you do go and get it onto a combustible material, it does go and fail. You could go and have a risk. So I thought that was quite a interesting question. What did you think of that, David?
Sorry, Nigel, I realised I was talking to myself with the unmuted phone there for a moment. Yeah, something I've been conscious of ever seeing some of the early pictures of laptops and lithium batteries catching fire is that I don't particularly like leaving these chargeable devices on overnight anywhere in the house. But that's me. Perhaps my risk equation isn't quite balanced.
Yeah.
But they are a source of fire, and even if you, as you say, they're very, very reliable. You don't want to have the one that isn't.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've changed is that I don't charge them next to my bed. I charge them in my kitchen overnight so that I know that my escape route out of my flat isn't impacted. So it's going and making that risk assessment. So exactly, David. So thank you very much. So the question is, how do they actually fail? What goes and causes lithium-ion batteries to actually fail? So the main reasons are physical damage. So in a car crash, you could go and get quite significant damage from that. And I have seen a YouTube video where they've driven a forklift over a lithium-ion battery and it's caught on fire immediately. So the other one is short circuiting in a similar way to how I described the lithium metal battery. And one of the items that was raised from the 2787 Dreamliner lithium-ion battery fires in the US and Japan was that these batteries are manufactured in a semi-clean facility. So it can pick up small metal particles, and those are slowly attracted toward the positive or negative ends of the battery. So they can go and short out over time due to that. So the US investigators, when they were looking at the 787 fires, requested quality assurance was improved for the manufacture of those large format batteries. Whether that's filtered down into smaller form factors, I'm unsure, but I'm hoping that a lot of the manufacturers of these batteries are starting to see feedback coming into it. And I know it is coming into the automotive industry as well. The batteries can be misused either by using incorrect charging equipment. So one of my pieces of advice is, I know some of these chargers, especially from branded companies, can be quite expensive, but they are put together for that exact purpose. So I would always advise the right charging equipment. You could go and tamper with it, and people do like to try and take things apart and go and see how things actually work. So tampering can occur as well. My final one is external heating. And if there is a car fire with the electric vehicles, that can go and have quite a significant impact. And nearby cells actually failing, when you go and have 7,000 cells, it could cascade through to other ones that could be actually impacted in a similar fashion. So the batteries themselves don't really undergo an explosion per se, but they do rapidly vent a flammable electrolyte which catches on fire. So that is what is actually on fire there, and it's going and dissipating that thermal energy. We can use material to keep this under control. However, if left uncontrolled, some cells, such as the cylindrical ones, can become projectiles from flame tests. And there is out there some really good YouTube videos of emergency services showing how hoverboards and these little cylindrical cells can actually become little projectiles. So that is another important aspect. So one of my things from that previous slide is, if you are going and charging lithium-ion batteries, do it appropriately in your places of work. So doing that risk assessment. And that was one of the things that they saw from the 787 fire, is that the risk assessment done for the aircraft was perfectly in line with the regulations at that point, but it didn't take into consideration the new technology and how those lithium-ion batteries brought in a different type of risk. So it's really important to understand that new technology. So often things that start to go wrong with these batteries is the overcharging, and that then leads to the thermal runaway, which I'll explain on the next slide. So what do I mean by thermal runaway, and what does this mean in conjunction with batteries? So all chemical reactions either give off heat, which we call exothermic, or take in heat, called endothermic, as the reaction progresses. This all depends on whether the reaction is trying to dispose of heat or needs to bring it in to actually form the next compound. We all know about energy conservation, and this is in simple terms what is happening here. So lithium-ion batteries contain a lot of chemical energy stored ready to produce electrical energy when we require it. But if damaged, this energy needs to be disposed of, so it turns into thermal energy. So the first thing that actually starts to happen is the temperature slowly heads towards what we call an onset temperature. And the battery then undergoes an acceleration phase, so that between around about 140 degrees Celsius on here and about 190 degrees, you have this slow increase in temperature. So you've got chance to actually go and put enough cooling energy on it. Once we go and get to what is called the runaway point, you then go and get into a area where the temperature is rising significantly. And for one certain lithium-ion battery chemistry, that thermal runaway temperature is 440 degrees per minute. Okay, so that is a huge amount of thermal energy that you're trying to go and bring under control. For a small battery, this amount of energy is easier to control by application of water or other extinguishing media, but on large format factors, this could be difficult to accomplish, especially in electric vehicles, as I say, within their steel chassis. We also have the issue of reignition or further cells failing once an incident has occurred, and this has shown up in the electric vehicles, with some countries proposing the use of immersion tanks or cordons around damaged electric vehicles at the recovery services yards to minimize this risk. So they have gone and been trying to go and bring in these different aspects, while engineering companies go and try and improve the safety side of the batteries as well. I did want to go and talk about an incident at Ocado in Andover, their warehouse fire that happened in 2019. And really, this fire started off as very, very small fire. So what happened was one of the batteries on one of their robot pickers, and there was 1,000 of these little guys going and running around, it actually short-circuited as it was charging. And that created enough thermal energy to then go and have a fire. It had a little plastic top on it, mainly for aesthetic reasons, and that went and caught on fire as well. And around the warehouse, it just kept going and doing its job and setting little fires around the entire warehouse. The fire detection system didn't notice it because it was such small scale. It was an award-winning system, so it was there, for the big fires that might actually occur within the warehouse. But unfortunately, it didn't see it, and actually they had to manually start it, and the staff went and got that started. By the time the system actually was turned on, there was too many little fires all around it for it to actually cope with, because there were 16 baskets. It had gone and migrated further and further down those stacks, and the system wasn't able to actually fully penetrate down to those levels. So in the end, the fire actually burnt for 4 days, taking up pretty much the entire warehouse, and that fire has actually cost Ocado £100 million. So you can see how a very, very small little fire, if it had been rapidly dealt with, you wouldn't have gone and had that entire warehouse being burnt down. But unfortunately, the system wasn't ready for that type of an incident. So just moving on to my final poll question for you all. And if we could go and launch that, please. I just wanted to go and sort of dwell on this one for a little bit before I go on to future developments. I suspect many of you have lithium-ion batteries on your site, and you've all conducted risk assessments in regards to fire risk. But my question is, which of these gases are produced during a thermal runaway? Do you think it's hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen chloride, phosphorus oxides, carbon monoxide, or hydrogen cyanide? So bringing in David on this one, which ones would you choose, David, for this?
Well, I'll probably go for one of the nasty ones like hydrogen fluoride. That would probably be my guess, I think, because isn't there fluorine or something used in the lithium-ion batteries?
Yes, that is the part of the salt that is in there.
But what do you do about it? Because it's quite a nasty substance, isn't it? Hydrogen fluoride, I seem to recall from my times in a refinery.
Yes, it's not a nice one, but it does dissipate very, very rapidly. So
Because
when
I'm
you,
not breathing it in that case
yeah, well,
then.
don't go near the gases that are produced. Basically, is that one. But when a cell goes and actually fails, and more, I'm thinking electric vehicle with this one, the hydrogen fluoride is dissipated within about 10 minutes or so. So it does
Oh,
go
okay.
very, very rapidly. And it's
They're
not,
very high temperature, as you mentioned earlier. So
yeah,
but if it's
yeah,
in an enclosed space, you want to ventilate it quite well.
yes, yes, yeah. You need to be very, very careful when you're doing confined spaces work. I would have, is my advice on that one. So shall we see how the results have come out? Share those. So I have been a bit naughty in that all of those will be coming off. So in actuality, you'll have hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen chloride, phosphorus oxide, hydrogen cyanide, and carbon monoxide all in that gas plume. So lots and lots of nasties. And on small scale, you know, we can go and be careful in how we actually deal with the fire. So if you can put it out with one extinguisher in a safe manner, then this can be sort of undertaken, but you may need to go and consider controlled burn in a safe manner and just back off because of the amount of nasties that are actually coming off of it. On larger scale, I would really advise removing staff as soon as possible and contacting the emergency services. But as I've sort of said with the small fires, it can create a much larger issue if your fire suppression system doesn't sense the fire. I've already said about the Boeing 787, the risk assessment for that was the lithium battery was used within the auxiliary power unit on the plane and passed the flight safety regulations at that time, but just didn't take into account that new technology. And you can see when you look at the report from the US, the amount of smoke that was coming out of that area at the back of the plane. The fire service, when they're trying to deal with it, because it was such a confined space, they just couldn't see it. So it took them around about an hour to actually remove it and actually take it out. And none of their firefighting equipment was able to actually put it out quickly and effectively. So it is a big, big issue. So really, one of my aims of this talk is to say that education is so important in putting together good risk assessment. And we've got a multitude of information sources as well as support from organisations such as IOSH. So we can prepare the staff far more effectively so they understand the risk they're actually dealing with. I wanted to go and finish off the talk going into the future and what is actually coming up. We're already seeing a lot of switch to electric vehicles and the rise of energy storage solutions. And these storage solutions help to limit the impact of high demand periods, since renewables are not able to ramp up production in the same way as oil and gas and coal were when we get home from work or need to turn the lights on as nights draw in, as in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment anyway. These sites have been limited to under 50 megawatts within the UK, but with the push towards renewables, this is looking to be relaxed. All of these storage sites use battery technology, and many of them are switching away from lead acid to lithium ion. They are stored in flame-proof cabinets. We've already seen incidents occurring in Liverpool, and there are many sites being developed around the globe. So if lithium-ion battery technology can be developed to remove the thermal runaway issue, this will be a real game changer. Along with increasing power and energy densities, these are the developments over the next 10 years that we're seeing. We are seeing also lithium metal development to limit its dendrimer formation, and this would solve many of the challenges we now face as well, because lithium metal can store enough energy to allow a 450 to 500-mile journey, so it's far more economical than current battery packs. And this was shown by one vehicle manufacturer. They used lithium metal in one of their vehicles, and it was able to go from Munich to Berlin in one journey without any further charging. So it is possible. We do have an issue or a challenge that we need to go and look at as well, though. How do we recycle lithium to make new batteries? Because again, there's only limited amounts of lithium and other metals required to produce these batteries. At the moment, we have 300 years worth of lithium. Well, that is about the estimate. But as we ramp up and we get more factories actually making electric vehicles, we're estimating it's going to be down to about 30 years or so. Also, cobalt is used in there, and there's only limited countries that can actually provide that. We need to therefore repurpose lithium batteries, and one of the things that is being done is that electric vehicle battery packs, after their 5 years within a vehicle, will be used in second and third life applications in our smartphones and laptops. So I can see that waste sites will need to process large quantities of these materials, and again, we'll need to take precautions in handling these hazardous materials. One of the vehicle manufacturers has already started to set up their specialist waste sites, and it'll be interesting to see how these are regulated over the coming years and how waste sites are actually going to deal with all of these batteries coming through their doors. So I wanted to just go and sum up what I've said with the future there, in that in 2020, we've got room temperature solid state electrolytes already, and we've gone and seen some deployment of graphene-based anode materials. In 5 years' time, we'll probably start seeing more deployment of second life batteries and the start of the industrial scale-up of high efficiency recycling processes, and potentially lithium metal starting to come into lithium-ion batteries. The new technologies, the commercialization is probably going to be around about 10 years or so. So lithium air, lithium sulfur, sodium ion and magnesium ion may start to go and come in around about there. And we're hoping to see the cells of lithium ion batteries. We've got eliminated that thermal runaway. So that's where we're actually seeing the future. So I'll really like to thank you all for your kind attention and coming through this little journey with us, and just like to go and finish off by saying, any questions?
Great, excellent. Yes, we've got some really good questions. And before I start, I do need to apologize to Jeff Elliott, who asked one of the first questions, and I was going to respond to him, and somehow I managed to get it from open to answered in one easy go without telling him anything. But his question, if we can start with it, is what is the best extinguisher to use on lithium battery fires?
The advice from safety data sheets is carbon dioxide, foam, or powder extinguishers for small batteries.
Okay, and for larger installations?
For larger installations, I would always recommend water.
Yeah, well, as a mist rather than a direct jet, or?
It depends on the installation. So in some of these energy storage solutions, they're going to have big ISO tankers with all the lithium batteries in there. Yeah. And it's really, the one that I like to see is that you could just go and flood the entire ISO container.
Right.
You do, for the electric vehicles, we appear to have to sort of just go and use a jet onto it. Mm-hmm. And it takes about 10,000 litres of water to actually fully extinguish, but it depends on exactly how it's going and progressing. It can be really, really tough. I've talked to a lot of fire officers on that one, and it can be a bit of a nightmare for them.
I mean, you mentioned the electric vehicles and the difficulties there. Lisa Marshall raised a question: has there been any issues with electrical vehicles underground? And she's looking for a source of information which may help with the risk assessment in deciding whether to use electrical or diesel vehicles.
There is some work going on in that area. There are a number of fire services around the globe who are looking into it. And I believe there was a few talks that I just need to go back and reference. Okay. So if you want to go and get in touch, I will go and source those for you.
Great. Lisa, we'll try and get back to you on that, but do drop us an email to make sure we're in contact with you.
Yeah.
For For staff working on auxiliary equipment, and this comes from Stephen Lewis, auxiliary equipment attached to electrical vehicles, refrigeration units, for example, what kind of control would need to be considered, broadly speaking? And do the design regs need to consider points beyond fault conditions?
I don't know how it aligns up with Desir. I would have to
Yeah.
go and look into that one. I would be a little bit careful how you charge various vehicles and other units near each other, because we did see in the Netherlands that one vehicle that was being charged overcharged and vented all its gas at the vehicle next to it and caught on fire.
Oh, okay.
So you do need to be careful in how you charge the large format vehicles. So I would not suggest going and piling all your forklifts, all 5 of them, right back bang next to each other.
Right. Okay. Well, I haven't yet invested in my Tesla. If I did, perhaps I'm interested in Mark Meakin's question, that many companies have electric vehicle charging points. Is there any guidance on the placement and separation distance from these points and the vehicles? And I've got in my mind a picture where all the charging points are lined up quite nicely in multi-story car park. And they're charging nicely in the corner.
I think the multi-story car park is going to be a significant issue. I'm not sure that is going to be a good place to do it until we eliminate thermal runaway. Because if one goes, it could easily impact the rest of them. I think that is why at the moment, when you look at most of the US Tesla installations or other companies, I should just pick on Tesla. You've got me on Tesla now. Thank you, David.
Sorry, my
But they go and mainly do it outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen a few instances where they've gone and done it in car park installations. So I think they are already aware that it's better to have it outside, and then any issues, it vents straight out into
because
fresh
most
air.
private homes, if for instance I went for a plug-in hybrid or electric, I'd be looking to mount my charging point inside the garage.
Yes, I didn't go into that.
You're getting me to think this through again from a different angle.
Yeah, we have seen a few. We saw one in Canada. The roof popped off the garage, and we think that was because of the charging point. It vented all the gas and found an ignition source and went pop. We don't know because we're not 100% sure what actually happened there, but there are a few around the place. I would advise, for the time being, with an electric vehicle, you do it outside the garage, not inside the garage.
Oh, right. Well, on the charging, because we've had a few questions on this, Martin White raised a question about wireless charging. Is that any safer? And I've got a follow-on one is if I charge between devices, so I connect my laptop to my iPhone and charge that way, is it safer when I connect 2 devices, or is wireless charging any different?
I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look into that. You're still basically transferring electrical energy into the battery, and it's the battery that goes wrong. So it's how likely that battery is of failing, not how you charge it.
But possibly the rate of charge may be slightly less on other means. We'd have to that.
Yeah, and it's within a lithium-ion battery, you have a lot of safety features like the battery management system and other things like that. And that's the important facet of it. It talks to whatever's charging it and then goes and tells it when to switch off and stop charging it. So that battery management system is vital to actually the health of the lithium-ion battery, which is why your smartphone is telling you more and more information about how the battery's actually, how its life is being impacted.
You mentioned earlier before we came live about charging the batteries between 20 and 80%. you suggest that it's, if you stay down below the 100% full charge, it's just that little bit safer, or doesn't it make an awful?
It's pretty safe to go up to 100% charge. That's not so much of an issue, but we are seeing with the electric vehicles that it takes a long time to kick in from, say, 0 or 5% to get to 20%, because it has to do a lot of thermal management. And then between 20 and 80%, it ramps up and it's very happy to charge at full capacity. And then once you get to over the 80 to 100, it starts to sort of get very slow. Again, thermal protection and all the rest of it. So it is important not to sort of, I know they used to go and say, charge it all the way up to 100%, use it up to a 0, charge it. And it seems like when we've looked at it more and more over the years, that trying to go and keep it in a nice 20 to 80, it seems to help to preserve the battery life.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Rupert Cowan's raised a question. What would be your biggest concerns when dealing with high voltage, high density battery packs powering HGVs? Because there are test vehicles on the road.
Yes.
I did mention the buses earlier, I think.
Yeah, so we are seeing some of them up to 1500 volts. So they are going to be a significant issue mainly to emergency responders. When you're driving it and when you're using it, you're protected from it. You've got all the safety features already there. But in a road traffic collision, when they're trying to extract and trying to go and actually de-energize the batteries, it can take up to 20 minutes for that de-energization to actually occur.
Okay.
So it can take a significant amount of time. And there you've got potential for damage of the battery pack. It isn't a steel chassis, so it should be fairly robust. But, it's one of the things where we're having to educate the fire officers in what they might be coming to, and then looking at the safety side of it. I mean, how do we go and do extrication and managing people's lives in the incident? Is a big challenge.
Okay. Phil Mitchell's asked a question about firewater runoff, as you were talking earlier about applying water to the larger areas.
Yeah, I think
do you require tertiary containment, and is there a sort of capacity range that they should be looking at for battery installation?
So I think I know Phil Mitchell. It's an interesting one in containment, because it's a corrosive that's running off of there. If you can contain it, it would be useful, but it depends on where it occurs. If it is on one of the motorways, going and talking to, say, Highways England to go and shut off the interceptors to go and sort of contain the runoff that way would be useful. But it all depends on where you are, what you're doing, and yes, it is a corrosive that's coming off of there when you're trying to put it out with water.
Oh, okay. One of the things that interested me, and you touched on it in terms of damage of batteries, and Robert Thomas has raised a very similar question that I was thinking of. And that is, there's been quite a lot of fires in waste disposal sites, and a number of them have pointed towards battery disposal as being one of the key issues. And he's asking, are you aware of any guidance to waste disposal sites or disposal companies in dealing with lithium?
Yeah, I would suggest, I think it's WISH. They go and do a huge amount on hazardous materials that go actually through sites. Also, the National Fire Chiefs Council, they've been putting a lot of stuff together on waste sites as well. So again, if you want to get in contact, I can go and sort of provide you information on that side of things.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. There's another question relating to the extinguishers, which is your views on vermiculite and AVD foam.
Vermiculite, I have a little bit of concern on because of the fact that it could have respiratory disease issues. So I'm a little bit. It works effectively. Don't get me wrong, but I think you need respiratory protection when you're going and putting it on, because it has silica, respirable silica in there, which we know could potentially cause cancer in the future. So I'm just protecting people's lungs with that one. Foam, I think you could use foam, and it appears on a lot of safety data sheets for that. But my choice would be going towards the CO2 powder first off.
Yeah. Okay, great. And Stuart Pennington quite correctly take me to task for saying that there are other manufacturers of Tesla and Tesla. Most major manufacturers do, but I'll give a plug for Jaguar Land Rover.
Yes.
Because I particularly appreciate them. Okay. I mean, obviously, with the increasing use in transport and other devices of quite large battery power schemes, are there guidances for people who store them, work with them, garage technicians, for example, when working with cars, both the safe isolation and control, safe storage, and as well as the disposal side?
There is a lot of advice out there. Euro NCAP's getting involved in lithium battery safety, and they've been producing an app to actually provide people the manufacturing information on how to look after their car, but also in emergency response capacity. So there is a lot of stuff coming through vehicle manufacturers into your NCAP and other safety people, and it is coming out to the various garages and manufacturers and waste sites as well. But it's trying to find it sometimes. So I know it's not always easy to go and get your hands on it, but it is all out there.
Okay, Nigel. You've done really well firing all these questions, and thanks to everybody for sending them in. You can tell it's been a subject of interest to people because we've had quite a lot of questions and comments coming through during the session. And I think this is the start of something that really is going to grow and grow. We're getting more and more used to these, the thoughts of battery walls at home, and all this technology that's coming is something that as safety professionals we need to keep a very close eye on. Can I ask everybody to fill in the poll that's just been sent around, which is the webinar feedbacks for IOSH? Can I also remind you again that we'd love to see you connect with us on the IOSH Hazardous Industries LinkedIn pages. And please do send through ideas for new talks and subject matters of interest, and share any reports that you get on major incidents that have occurred, because we do like to refer to these and circulate them and share the learning. It's basically, I guess, the close of us connecting with you all for 2020. And we do look forward to seeing you all in 21. And we hope that it's going to be a much nicer year than last year. And I thank very much IOSH support teams, Ben today, who's been making sure that Nigel and I both stick to time and don't press too many wrong buttons. And Nigel, just perhaps one last thank you to you. And if there's anything you'd like to say as we close off.
I just wanted to wish everyone a very happy Christmas. I know it's not quite the Christmas we were all hoping for, but may 2021 be an even more prosperous year for you all.
And I look forward to talking to you all again next year. Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, everybody. And I hope you've enjoyed it.
Right, thank you.
Bye. Bye.